The Exorcism of Kristy Bamu. It was meant to be a joyful Christmas. In December 2010, 15-year-old Kristy Bamu left Paris with his younger siblings to visit his older sister, Magali, in London. For the children, it was an exciting trip, a chance to reunite with family, share laughter, and enjoy the warmth of the holiday. But what awaited them in that East London flat was not celebration. It was terror. From the moment they arrived, Magali's partner, Eric Bikubi, seemed suspicious of the children. He was a man consumed by superstition, steeped in the Congolese belief of kindoki, witchcraft, a dark force he imagined lurking everywhere. When things went wrong in his life, he blamed spirits. And now, he turned his gaze on Kristy. Kristy was quiet, shy, and gentle. But to Bikubi, that gentleness became a sign of evil. He began whispering accusations. The boy had brought witchcraft into his home, he insisted. Kristy was cursed. Kristy was dangerous. At first, the accusations were words, but words gave way to blows. Over the next 3 days, Kristy and his siblings endured a nightmare that no child should ever face. Bikubi demanded that Kristy confess to sorcery. When Kristy pleaded that he was innocent, the beatings intensified. They used sticks, bars, and hammers. They struck his head and body again and again. His mouth bled, his face swelled. His small frame, once filled with the energy of youth, was broken down into bruises and cuts. Kristy's sisters were forced to join in the torment. Terrified children, coerced into striking their own brother. They cried and begged for mercy, but Bikubi only raged louder. And Magali, Kristy's sister, the one who should have protected him, stood by her partner's side. Sometimes she joined in, other times she turned away. But she never stopped him. The torture became an exorcism, twisted in its cruelty. Bikubi claimed he was cleansing Kristy, forcing the spirits out. He made him kneel in prayer for hours, starving him of food and water, demanding confessions that Kristy could not give. Eventually, beaten and broken, Kristy gave in. He whispered that yes, he was a witch, if only to stop the pain. But even this did not save him. On Christmas Day, as carols played across the city, Kristy's suffering reached its end. Bikubi forced him into a bath, ordering a final purification. Kristy was too weak to resist. The water filled his lungs. His small body slipped under. When he was pulled out, he was lifeless. He was 15 years old. The aftermath was a scene of horror. Kristy's body bore over 130 injuries from days of torture. His siblings, though alive, were traumatized beyond words. Police arrived to a flat drenched in blood and grief. The truth spilled out quickly. This was no accident, no misunderstanding. It was murder. A murder born of superstition and blind cruelty. The judge called the crime sadistic and prolonged. Both Eric Bikubi and Magali Bamu were sentenced to life in prison. 30 years for him, 25 for her. Kristy was laid to rest in France. His family buried him not as a witch, but as what he truly was. A boy. A gentle, kind, loving boy who should have had a lifetime ahead of him. The Exorcism of Maricica Irina Cornici. The monastery at Tanaku, in a quiet corner of Romania, was meant to be a sanctuary, a place of silence, prayer, and refuge from the chaos of the outside world. For Maricica Irina Cornici, a 23-year-old nun, it was supposed to be the home she had been searching for her whole life. Maricica had grown up in an orphanage, abandoned and rootless. Her childhood had been marked by loneliness and hardship. And yet, those who knew her said she was gentle, with a soft smile and a longing for love and belonging. When she entered the monastery, She hoped that faith would finally give her peace, but peace never came. In the spring of 2005, the other nuns began to notice changes in Maricica. She laughed uncontrollably at nothing. She mumbled to herself in empty rooms. Sometimes she cried without reason. Other times she seemed gripped by rage. Today, a doctor might have called it schizophrenia or severe depression. In fact, Maricica had already spent time in a psychiatric hospital. But in Tanaku, in the walls of that remote monastery, the diagnosis was far darker. To the head priest, Father Daniel Korojanu, Maricica wasn't sick. She was possessed. What followed was not healing. It was a ritual that turned into torture. Father Daniel declared that an exorcism was the only way to save her. With the help of 4 nuns, he set about purging the demons that he believed had taken hold of her soul. They bound Maricica with ropes and chains to a wooden cross. They gagged her mouth with a towel to silence her cries. They denied her food and water, saying fasting would starve the devil within. For days she was left tied there, arms spread wide, body weakening, spirit fading. She begged, she struggled, but her voice was muffled, her body too frail. On June 15, 2005, Maricica went still. Her head slumped forward, her breath stopped. By the time medical help was called, it was too late. The young nun, a woman searching for peace, had died of suffocation and dehydration. She had been killed in the name of salvation. The news tore through Romania like a storm. To some, it was a crime so shocking, it seemed medieval. A young woman tortured to death in a modern European country, all under the guise of religion. To others, especially in rural villages where superstition still held sway, Father Daniel was a man of faith, a priest who had tried to fight the devil himself. But the courts saw the truth. In 2007, Father Daniel stood before a judge. He insisted he had acted with compassion, that he only wanted to free Maricica from the evil that plagued her. The judge called it murder. He was sentenced to 14 years in prison. The 4 nuns who had held Maricica down received sentences of 5 to 8 years. The monastery itself was shut down, its doors closed forever. Maricica's story did not end there. Her death became a symbol of how vulnerable people can be destroyed when fear and superstition replace compassion and understanding. It sparked debates in Romania about mental health, about the influence of the Orthodox Church, about the dangers of blind faith. Her tragedy inspired books, documentaries, and even the award-winning Romanian film Beyond the Hills, which carried her story to the world. But behind all the headlines and debates was a young woman, a girl who had grown up without family, who had wanted only love and belonging, who sought God and instead found death. Maricica Irina Cornici was not a vessel for demons. She was a daughter, a friend, a human being, and her story, like Kristy Bamu's, is a haunting reminder of how fear dressed in the language of faith can take everything from the innocent. The Exorcism of Terrence Cottrell. In Milwaukee, on a warm summer night in August 2003, a small storefront church echoed with prayers, cries, and finally, silence. At the center of it all was Terrence Cottrell Jr., an 8-year-old boy with big brown eyes, a love for cartoons, and the innocence of childhood. Terrence was autistic. He struggled to communicate, often rocking or humming to calm himself. But those who knew him said he was sweet and full of life. His mother, searching desperately for answers and healing, believed the church might help where doctors could not. She took him to Faith Temple of the Apostolic Faith, a tiny Pentecostal congregation led by Reverend Ray Hemphill. The pastor was charismatic, devout, and convinced that Terrence's autism was not a medical condition, but the work of demons. On the evening of August 22, 2003, the prayers turned into something far darker. Hemphill announced he would perform a deliverance, an exorcism, to free the boy's soul. In the small church room, lit by dim lights and filled with whispered amens, Terrence was laid down on the floor. The pastor straddled the child's chest, pressing him down. He prayed loudly, demanding the demons to leave. Terrence squirmed. He gasped for air. He whimpered, a sound that should have stopped everything. But Hemphill believed resistance was the devil fighting back. So he pushed harder. For nearly 2 hours, the ritual continued. The boy pinned beneath the weight of an adult man, unable to breathe freely, his mother and others watching helplessly, believing this was holy work. Terrence's movements slowed. His cries faded. At last, he lay still. By the time paramedics arrived, the child was gone. The coroner's report would later say he died of mechanical asphyxiation. In plain words, he suffocated. The community was devastated. News spread that an innocent autistic boy had been killed in an exorcism. Terrence's death sparked anger, grief, and disbelief. How could a healing prayer turn into a death sentence? Rev Hemphill was arrested. At trial, prosecutors described the desperate struggle of a child who could not fight back. Witnesses testified to what they saw that night, prayers turning to tragedy. Hemphill insisted he had meant no harm, that he had only wanted to save the boy from spirits. But the court called it what it was: reckless homicide. In 2004, Hemphill was sentenced to 2 years in prison, with probation after his release. To many, the sentence felt painfully light. A boy was dead, and the man responsible would spend less than 3 years behind bars. Terrence's story did not fade. His name became part of a tragic list. Children killed when disability or illness was mistaken for possession, when faith was twisted into violence. He was not a vessel of demons. He was a boy who loved cartoons, who deserved to grow up, who needed compassion and care. Instead, he died in a church, under the weight of a man who believed he was saving him. The world remembers him now as a reminder that true faith should heal, not harm, and that children like Terrence need love, not exorcisms.